Hey guys, this is Kyle from motorcyclehabit.com, and I'm going to be talking about a few things that happen to your motorcycle when you let it sit for too long and don't ride it frequently enough. So first thing, this one's really annoying, and as you can see underneath the motorcycle, when you let the bike sit for too long, your gaskets and seals start to shrink and crack. So this one, I haven't ridden my bike in a couple months. It's been cold and I'm a wuss. So the oil drain plug at the bottom on these old Triumphs is a square, and there's a gasket that sits between that metal flange and the bottom of the the bottom of the engine case. So over time that shrinks and cracks if that oil doesn't get hot and lubricate the gasket. So that has already shrunk and cracked, and so now I have an oil leak. So this spring I'll have to replace that gasket before I ride around, or else it can just get worse and I'll have a big oil leak in the middle of a ride, which is not a very good thing. Okay, so this next point that I want to talk about is when your bike sits for too long, it can ruin your tires, and it can do it really fast as well. I've even been surprised by some bikes that I've bought. People say, yeah, it's been sitting just since last year. I bought new tires before I parked it, and within that first year they're already completely ruined. They're just completely flat, and once the tire becomes flat and it gets cracks along the sidewall of the tire, it's just ruined. Don't mess with it, just get new tires. A lot of people sell patch kits as well. I don't trust them personally. You might. Let me know what you think in the comments, but I don't trust it just because this is the only thing between me and the road, and I want to feel safe. So I would say a good rule of thumb for tires is every 2 or 3 months, if you're not going to ride your bike, at least come out, start the bike up, let the oil flow, and roll the bike forward or backwards a couple inches so you're not sitting in the same exact spot. Motorcycle tires, here's kind of an analogy. They're kind of like, since they're made of rubber, compared to a rubber band. So if you take a rubber band and you're stretching it constantly, it keeps that elasticity. But if you let it just sit there for a long time, as soon as you pull it once, it's going to snap. Same thing as if you leave it out in the sun. It's going to seriously decrease that elasticity and make the rubber a lot more brittle. Your tires will do the exact same thing. Don't leave it sitting in the sun for a long period of time. I'm talking months. And don't let it go flat and then park it. You're just going to completely ruin the tire. At least keep it rotating every once in a while. Okay, point number 3 for if you let your motorcycle sit for too long is it can cause severe battery problems. And batteries are getting more and more expensive for motorcycles. So this is one that if you just take good care of your battery, or you put it on a battery tender or a trickle charger or something, this can save you a lot of money. So when you let your motorcycle sit for long periods of time and your battery is still hooked up, there's a phenomenon called parasitic drain. And that can happen 2 ways. First way is if you leave something on, like you leave a turn signal or your headlight or your brake light on, something. That can quickly discharge the battery. You'll know that within a day if you left something on. But another one that's a problem, another part of parasitic drain that's a problem for storing for longer periods of time, is if you just have poorly grounded wires. That can slowly discharge a battery, and if you don't check it for a couple months, then you won't even know up front that you have a problem. You won't see it on the battery voltage with your multimeter. But if you check it a couple months later, all of a sudden it'll just be dead. So also, if you're planning on leaving your bike sitting for the winter, which most of us do, that's even more dangerous for your battery, because if your battery discharges and then freezes, if it's sitting somewhere at or below freezing temperatures, the acid inside the battery can no longer take a full charge. The electrons can't take a charge like they used to, and you're just going to have to buy a new battery. Okay, point number 4. This one is not going to affect all of you, but it is going to affect a lot of people. So this is one I didn't have to deal with when I've lived in Utah and Idaho, because those climates are just so dry. I didn't have to worry that much about rust. But since then, I've moved to Mississippi, and the humidity here is just killer. So I've had to worry about rust in all sorts of crazy places that I didn't even know existed on my motorcycle. Things like the gas tank, the front brakes and rear brakes rust really quickly. The rear sprocket is, I've had the bike sitting for like a month now, and the rear sprocket is already covered in surface rust. And just little nooks and crannies that I didn't have to worry about before. But now I have to clean my bike and make sure I've got lubricant and stuff all over it all the time, or it's just instantly going to rust. Especially in the gas tank, that one's really bad. So you can pop the tank, and inside you can see surface rust through the whole thing. So I have to keep my tank filled, keep the liquid level as high as I can all the time in the tank, or else surface rust can start literally within a day or two. Let's see what else. Another place that, this one's harder to check, but inside your cylinder can rust really quickly as well. So even though a lot of us have aluminum engines, a lot of motorcycle engines are made out of aluminum, the cylinder itself is usually a steel sleeve so that it's harder. And that steel sleeve, if you get condensation inside your cylinder by sitting for a long time, especially over winter, that cylinder can build up surface scale or surface rust inside there. And it's horrible for your engine. Next time you start it up, it's going to rip off all that scale, and it's just like taking really rough sandpaper to your cylinder wall. It's not good for it. And point number 5 that I wanted to cover today is, if you let your bike sit for too long, you're going to have a stiff or unlubricated chain. And this is just a general rule of maintenance for anywhere you live in the country, anywhere you live in the world. After you go out on a ride, you're going to flip off a lot of oil or lubricant off your chain. When you get back, just put some back on. Make it one of your first priorities. After you go on a ride, clean up your bike, re-lubricate the chain if you need to. Some chains don't require it, but most do. Here, living in the South, after I go for a ride, I can start to see surface rust on my chain after a day or two. I even bought bikes that have been sitting for several years, and I can probably show you some examples, but the chains become literally rock hard. You can't even break the links after a while. They become so stiff. Dirt and grime and grease and everything gets in there, and it almost welds the chain links together. So make sure, if you're going to leave your bike sitting for a while, come out every couple months and rotate the rear wheel. It's not that hard, and just keep your chain lubricated. Okay, so those are my 5 main points for today on what happens to your motorcycle after you let it sit for too long. If you want to learn more, click the link below, or go to motorcyclehabit.com and search for what happens when you let your motorcycle sit for too long. Thanks.